Hey everybody, it's John Schnepp, and we're back for part 2 of a very special edition of Heroes. I'm just calling it the Heroes Special, and with me, as from part 1, is Umberto and Vito. Thanks again, guys, for sticking around for the hours of fun and entertainment that we are enjoying, sweating it out, talking about superhero films.
Yeah.
All right. We are going to rock it into the year 2015, which is where we are right now, and we're going to talk about a bunch of films that have come out that we've all seen, starting with Kingsman. Let's go right off into Kingsman. What an incredible and unexpected, amazingly fun film this comic book adaptation was. It's a Mark Millar, Dave Gibbons comic book. Didn't really hear much about it. It was called Secret Service. Under the radar, flying that way for quite a while. Matthew Vaughn, amazing director, rocked it with First Class. He was like, hey, look, I don't know what else I'm going to do. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. I'm going to do Secret Service. You're like, what? You're going to do that comic? Okay. Cut to Kingsman comes out. Mind blown. This was so much fun. So very unexpected for me. Vito, what do you think about Kingsman?
I loved it. I was a fan of the comic. I like reading Mark Millar's books. We were talking during the break that Mark Millar's a hit or miss writer for comics, but that his movies always turn out really awesome. And I had really liked the Secret Service comic, and I was looking forward to what they did with it. The changes they made were all perfectly in service with the story. I forgot the name of the young kid who played the lead, but he was incredible.
Great actor,
I mean, I'd never seen anything else that he was in. Colin Firth, fuck, dude, he gave James Bond a run for his money. I thought it was an incredible movie all around. I mean, there was nothing about it that didn't like have me on the edge of my seat. And I thought it was really thrilling. I mean, the fight scenes were really well shot. The villain was great. I love the fact that, you know, Samuel Jackson was willing to put on that goofy lisp, you know, hey, what's up, fellas?
Right.
I mean, he pulled that. He was a complete dork who was a villain, which was an amazing. You've never seen that in a movie before. I loved it. I thought it was one of the best films of the year so far.
How about you?
I loved the movie. First of all, I loved the Secret Service comic. Throwback to the Sean Connery days, and that's exactly what Vaughn wanted to do.
Yeah.
So here we have Colin Firth in a very dapper three-piece, slim-fitted suit. So I love the fashion of the movie. Manners maketh man, you know, sort of my thing. And it was awesome. And it was very hyper-realistic, the action, like, especially when that church scene when he goes in there and he just like, that, the choreography. And
So amazing.
Absolutely. Everything.
What was the song? Freebird.
Freebird, yes.
I'll never think about Freebird in a different way other than when if I hear that song, I'm going to think about that scene in that church, which was fantastic.
That was fantastic.
So ultra violent, but yet satisfying.
Well, you know what's funny about that scene as you watch it, and he's killing the hell out of everybody.
Yes.
And you're sickened by it, but then at the end of the scene, you're like, yeah, but they're like the Westboro Baptist Church, so
Yeah. So it's kind of
It's
okay.
okay.
Yeah.
They're all a bunch of dumb people who should all be dead. So he's killing them. It's wrong, but it's okay.
Right.
Especially since it's a movie. So
Yeah.
it's already like a cleansing palate. Oh, it's not real, so you might as well enjoy it.
Yeah.
So
The villain's fascinating in that movie too, because again, the best villains are the ones who don't realize that they're bad guys. This is a man who thinks he's saving the world.
Right.
That's the most dangerous kind of person, is the person who's doing evil in the name of good.
It's Ozymandias. So
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
the exact thing. Mark Millar is great at writing some things, like he killed it with Nemesis. Some other things not that great, but when he nails it, he really nails it.
Yeah.
And Matthew Vaughn's on a streak, so I'm really excited. I love this film. It was so much fun. I love the training sequence with all the kids.
Yeah, it was amazing.
I loved all the mind games. Action sequences were incredible. I didn't expect it to be so great. So it's one of those unexpected fun films that I can't wait. I'm happy that they're going to make a second one.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's move on to another film that was pretty amazing. It was called Avengers. Now, you might have heard of it, Avengers Age of Ultron. So it's the sequel to the smash billion-dollar smash out 2012 hit Avengers. And this one, he's gonna, Joss Whedon's back, and he's like, hey, I'm gonna write the Ultron story that I've been talking about wanting to write. Brings everybody back in, introduces Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, introduces the Vision, and so it's a big film. Let's talk about it, Vito. What do you think?
I love the movie. There were a lot of people who thought that it was too long and that there were too many characters and things like that. But I mean, the fact that he was able to introduce the Vision the way that he did. I mean, there were some people who were pissed that they didn't bring in Wonder Man and stuff like that. You know, I didn't care about any of that. It's just a joy to see these characters interacting, and the fact that Whedon has a particular skill for creating these interpersonal conflicts with the characters that you get in the comics. You know what I mean? The little arguments that Tony and Cap were having and stuff like that. And you're like, wow, they're leading up to the Civil War argument. You know, I thought it was amazing at setting up the sequels without it didn't feel like a movie where you were like, it's just setting up future Marvel movies.
Right.
And I actually, I don't know. I mean, there wasn't a lot I could nitpick in it, to be honest with you. It was a little long, but I mean, it was thrilling. I mean, what else do you want, you know? Paul Bettany was amazing as the Vision. I mean, he was exactly the way I imagined that character when I read him in the comics.
Yeah, I have a lot of pros and cons of the movie. Umberto, what do you think?
Same. At first, I was like, oh my God, this was so awesome.
That you have this robot that shows up and he's like, I'm gonna destroy the world, and he gets into the internet and he takes off, and for the rest of the movie they were like, oh, we better stop Ultron. Like, there was no sense of urgency to stop it. This thing got into the internet. It is now practically unstoppable, and you're like, oh, let's go hang out over here. And I mean, there was no sense of that urgent,
agree. I
you know,
mean-
need to take this thing down right now.
That farm element
Yeah.
to me is what the end of Terminator Genesis was, where they're like, we've got to turn off the Genesis device, but they're like walking
But
and
first,
having
a break.
conversations.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if it's going to work out with us, like walking,
Right.
like while there's a time bomb clicking off, they're
Yeah.
like walking from scene to scene.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, they didn't pace that film out. They didn't think a lot of these scenes through. When you really have a good crew and a good team, they're like, they should be running in the scene. We should be having action. This should be tense.
Yeah.
Felt that way on the farm.
Yeah. Now, but didn't you think it was really amazing? The things that I really loved about the movie were the little nods to the Marvel history that we were talking about earlier. I love the fact that Scarlet Witch was in danger, and that moment where the Vision comes in and swoops and he picks her up, and as they're flying off, the look that she has on her face as she looks into his eyes, and you realize they're gonna fall in love. You know, I mean, I love those little moments and nods to the comics. You know, that's what I think I get, you know, out of Joss Whedon's stuff in particular that I really loved. Yeah, the pacing was off and stuff, but I do like the introduction of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. I thought they fit within the movie enough that it didn't feel like they were jammed in there.
Right.
You know, I think if they would have tried to get Black Panther in there also and a couple of other characters, then you would have been like, this is Civil
And then
War
now Spider-Man's in there at the end.
Right.
It's like, but
Yeah.
see, it wouldn't have been Civil War because it's like they had Ultron as the main character. Then it would be jamming too many characters in. I don't know. I mean, I really enjoyed the Vision side story. Was
TNA is all over there. But, and it's also the problem that Marvel's starting to run into, white corporate bad guy, which is a fair criticism because you're starting we've seen this already in Iron Man 1, now you're doing it again in Ant-Man, but I had a huge problem. Michael Pena took me out of the movie. It was...
believe me, it's a very unique reaction. But I hear what you're saying because they also had the Russian clown.
Yes, the Russian.
And they had the black clown.
And he the guy had the line where he goes, "Is it gypsies?" Like, really? Right. So gypsies.
iPod not working now. It was like that kind of.
And I'm like, come on, dude.
They're beyond
seriously?
that. They didn't need to do that.
And not to mention, I think the best way I could describe that movie is it felt like a Marvel movie that would have been made in the 90s.
Yes.
With all of the oh, really? He's got a daughter who just happens to be super smart and cute and says funny lines. And, I was like, everyone in it felt like such a stereotype. Yeah. And again, I felt like as soon as they said cut, that none of those characters had ever known each other before they were in that room. It didn't feel like there was a history with those people. Mm-hmm. The only character in the movie that I felt was an actual, real character who wasn't a stereotype was Hank Pym.
Thank you, yeah.
He brought a lot of weight to that character. Mm-hmm. Really think about Hope. How all Hope does in the movie is go, it should be me. Yeah. They just make her into the shrew when technically she's such an amazing. Everything about her character is amazing, and yet all she does is go.
Well, I would argue that I don't think she does that throughout the whole movie. I don't think it was.
There's scenes where she falls in love with Paul,
but then why would you think she's a good character if that's all she did? There are elements that she reveals that later. I think the way the film was written, there are stereotypes in it, that definitely without a doubt, and I could see that. It didn't affect me as much as it affected you for different reasons, obviously. Right. But I could see that now that you brought it up. But for me, that didn't bother me as much as far as seeing, because there's so many stereotypes within all of the whole film. It's very stereotypical.
It's 2015. Do we have to see Mexican gangbangers again in movies? It's 2015.
I was surprised the Italian cop wasn't a mafioso. That was the next stop. You know what I mean? Hey,
hey, let's go get a pizza later. Whoa.
Yeah, right. I was like, I just felt. I think the way that you encapsulated that was because I was like, his crew just felt so tacked on. And again, was Scott Lang supposed to be a brilliant thief who's a bad guy who has a change of heart now that he wants to help his daughter? Was he a crusading guy who was going out and he stopped a corporation and took them down? And then why was he still thieving after that? They set up that he was going out and he took this corporation down, but then why does he have a crew that's like, hey, we found this score, it's this old dude and we're gonna take his stuff? Like, if you're a good guy if you're a Robin Hood, then be a Robin Hood.
But I don't think he
was. Is he a Robin Hood?
No, he wasn't a Robin Hood. That's what I liked about it.
But that's the thing is the movie doesn't answer that because they tell you several things about him.
It doesnn't have to answer it. It answers it at the end. He decides to be good at the end. It's his journey from getting out of prison. Is he gonna rob and steal like he's used to doing? Is he gonna go back to crime? Yes, actually he is. But he gets lured in by Pym. So I don't have any kind of problems with the way the story was told. To me, it had a lot of edges of comedy, which definitely run into the stereotypical aspect of some of those things. It's funny because the Russian character was the one that I felt was like, man, they're really layering that on a little too thick for me, but the other characters didn't bother me as much, but I could definitely see that as okay, they're doing that to these other characters too. Honestly, it was one of those things where I just took it as these are the comedic edges that they're adding to it. All of it has these little jokey elements to it. It's the funniest of all the Marvel films as far as not being super straight-laced and serious. Like when Captain America says language, that's a different kind of humor than what Ant-Man had. So for me, it's I definitely took it in a totally different realm than what you did. And
it confused me. I'm like, I didn't see stereotypes in none of the other 7 movies they released beforehand. I was like, what is this?
Right on. Yeah. Well, it's a good note for sure.
Black Widow. She's also a secretary, right? Yeah. You're like that. They didn't do that to her.
No,
I don't know.
Not at all.
All right. Well, hey, we all have different opinions.
Yeah,
I still love Ant-Man, but it's very good to hear your opinions on it.
Yeah.
Let's move on to a film that just came out. It's the last superhero film of this year that's come out. It just dropped this weekend, The Fantastic Four. So this is the Ultimates version of the Fantastic Four. It's definitely not the version that Tim Story and you know, that had all the entire other crew from 2005 and 2007 with Rise of the Silver Surfer. It was way more of like a kind of a lighthearted rom-com family version of the Fantastic Four, comedy version. This is a darker look at the Fantastic Four, and it makes them younger. It basically puts them into college years, and it's gotten probably the most savage critical reviews ever of any superhero film that has ever come out. I mean, literally, I think on Rotten Tomatoes it was a 9%, 9%, which is incredibly
It
low.
went from a 12 to a 9.
Yeah, so it's gone down in the day that it came out. I saw it last night. Umberto, you've seen it. You haven't had a chance
I have
to
not
see it
seen
yet.
the movie.
What do you think, Umberto?
I don't see. It breaks my heart because this movie had an agenda against it since before they started shooting. It's been living. It was on superhero hype forums and stuff. All that gossip got emailed to me over the past year. I ignored most of it. So I go in with an open mind on Wednesday morning to see the movie, and I'm watching this and I see good characterization. I see the movie's definitely flawed. It's not a perfect film by any means of the imagination, but the first 2/3 worked for me. And I told readers, look, ignore the reviews, go see it for yourself and make up your own mind. And so far, thank God, a lot of people on Twitter, you know what, you were right. The first 2 acts were serviceable. It just falls apart in the third act. You could see where the studio meddled with this movie, okay? And it's sad because then that tweet comes out last night, and I'm always going to be curious, and me and a couple other colleagues, I wonder what Josh Trank's version would have been had they left him alone or had they not interfered. Again, it's been a movie that no filmmaker should ever go through. It was doomed from inception, man, literally. But I like The Thing. I think it's the most cinematic accurate thing that we've gotten. Ben Grimm was brooding. He was big. He was used as a weapon and stuff. The special effects on him were awesome.
Incredible, especially when he was talking. You
When he
see
was
the
talking
rocks
and
moving.
He had emotion in his face.
Yeah.
That we didn't see that just a couple of years ago. It's incredible how technology advances, but it's not the hot mess that people are making it out to be. Remove the third act is fine. Look, people had issues with the first Iron Man. They take the same argument that the first 2 acts work, it kind of falls apart in the third. I disagree, but it deserves a shot, you know. And if they could build on what they have in the first 2 acts, hopefully they make a sequel and get it right the next time. But it's just been one unfortunate situation. Like I said, I will always believe the movie was doomed before it even started. Man.
Yeah, you know, I have to echo your sentiments. I have a lot of friends in the industry, and I've heard so many backstories about just the meddling. I mean, you always hear about this stuff like X-Men Origins. You had some dumb executive, I want that entire thing painted red, or just ruining stuff, or like people who didn't read the script, didn't have anything to do with it, yet their name is on there as a producer, and it's only 6-7 months in do they come in and be like, why is that in there? Cut that out.
Yeah.
You're like, yo, we just shot it. I don't like it. And I'm going to use that dumb voice because that's what it sounds like to me when I hear idiots making bad decisions. So for me, I saw the film. I tried to throw all that garbage that I'd already heard about the film, and everybody's, it's got a 9% or a 12%. I was like, I, being a Fantastic Four fan, since that was my first comic book as a kid that I loved because it was all about monsters. When I saw the trailers for this, I have heard all this hate on it, but I was like, hey, I'm cool with it being a science fiction horror film that has these characters who transform. I don't need it to be a superhero film. We already have like 7,000 superhero films. Can it be what it's going to be? I don't think the studio would not allow that to happen. Whoever interfered and made that last 20 minutes of garbage, that is what the Fantastic Four film is. I agree with you. The first 60 minutes or 65 minutes or something are actually pretty fun. They're dark. It's a different kind of film. It's not a lighthearted comedy or anything.
It's a body horror movie.
It's a body horror film. It's like a Cronenberg kind of weird science fiction take with using the Fantastic Four. It's completely different than the Fantastic Four 2005 and 2007 version.
Better than those 2 films. That's for
It is better than those. But where it really falls apart is when Doom shows up.
So when it becomes a superhero movie.
When it becomes a superhero film, and these characters that you've just been watching for like the last 55, 60 minutes, all of a sudden start spouting weird dialogue, start fighting like, we need to act as a team. You do this. Like, what's happening? Then this character is the Doom characterization.
Ventriloquist Doom.
Oh my God.
So wait a minute. You're telling me that Dr. Doom doesn't show up for the first hour and 15 minutes of the movie?
Correct. He just shows up, and then they don't let him even
ridiculous.
be a character. He just kind of wakes up. All of a sudden is like, I need to get back to my planet, this gross, weird rock planet, which they say is like, oh, it's beautiful and this and that. It's like, it just looks like a bunch of mountains. I don't know why he wants
He's there
it.
a year.
He's there a year. I guess he's got space matters or he lost his mind or whatever. He wants to go back. Yet, why don't they just let him go back? Instead, he's like, now I'm going to destroy the world. It's like none of it made sense. And then the Fantastic Four all have these powers, and they've already demonstrated this kind of like
predictable,
them training with these powers. Then they just go to this other side of the planet, have a really dumb, boring fight scene that lasts like 10 minutes, and the movie's over.
Yeah.
And then you had them get their, I'll ruin it for you. Sorry. They go and get their new base, and they're like, really horrible dialogue ensues, and then there's credits, and you're like, what just happened? You're like, it's like getting hit by a train. Like you're on a deluxe first class Amtrak train, and then you get derailed and like you're flying off a cliff the last 10 minutes, and then you smash and land and explode. It's really, you didn't see it coming. Especially, I was like, I don't know what everyone's complaining about. This is actually a well-made film, and I'm tracking the story. I mean, there's cuts and weird edits. The editing in it is horrible because it got disassembled and reassembled, and I mean, you could see where scenes are supposed to go or characterizations are supposed to go. Like, I remember hearing about Dr. Doom. He was like, oh, he's Doomashev and he's a hacker. And everyone's like, that's stupid and this and that. Well, I guess all you idiots who complain so much about it, Fox listened to you and they cut all that stuff out. But now the character doesn't make any sense because they cut all that stuff out. Because he's not a hacker. Basically, that's just a terminology for idiots. Oh, he's a hacker. It's, what he's actually doing is like causing disruptions for the government. And the government are the people who end up taking over the Fantastic Four and hiding them away and training them and using them as a government experiment. Weaponizing them. Dr. Doom, quote unquote, Doomashev or whatever his name was supposed to be, Victor is anti-government at the beginning of the film. They've already kicked him off the project, and Franklin, who's basically the Franklin Storm,
he was the standout to me.
Yeah, he's the one who's like, we need him. He's smart enough. He's the one who'll connect these pieces. It just felt like so many things were cut out that were actually necessary to the story, that then the story itself didn't make sense. And then once Doom came back, none of it made sense, and then they reshot everything. That's what it feels like to me, because it doesn't feel.
I think
like the
that
rest
is
of
what
the,
happened.
It doesn't feel like the rest of the film. It feels like a totally different film. And when I say a totally different film, I mean a horrible, bad film. It turns into 20 minutes of garbage, and then there's credits, and you're like, that's why people are pissed. Because when people are watching something that seems to be leading you somewhere, and then it just takes a right turn and turns into a not even a good other film, but a bad other film, people get angry. And that's when you get critics who like might have already had something against the film already, but then you just read these criticisms of film and you're like, they're a little bit over the top. It's very
interesting, because I talk about this with my friends all the time about film structure, is that back in the day when the Warner Brothers and when all of these studios were founded, the people who founded these studios might not have been educated. They didn't have degrees and all that stuff, but they knew how to tell a story. There was something within them that they just knew a good story when they heard it. That's why movies were so amazing back then. Nowadays, you get these guys and gals who have MBAs and stuff, and they come in, they have a business degree. They've never studied screenwriting. They come in and they're like, I know how to make this movie better than the guy who's a paid screenwriter does. And that's the weird thing about why movies today suck, is because they go, well, it needs more explosions. If Casablanca were written today, there'd be car chases and explosions, and you'd be like, what is this? It wouldn't be what it was intended to be. And it's weird, because I think storytelling is what's suffering in film today. Film is storytelling, for fuck's sake. Like, let people make movies. Just hire them and let them make them, and we're going to get way better movies. But instead, hey, because no one wants that, we'll get a Transformers 5 through 12.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going to happen with Fantastic Four, if there'll be a Fantastic Four 2. If they're
supposed to fight the X-Men, right? I've heard that they've set it up,
but then they took
the
it a
same
step
world.
back. That now they're parallel worlds, They're not sharing.
Oh, interesting. How'd they do that?
It was just
was it
like
in the
a day or
movie?
two.
Was it set up in the movie that it's a parallel world, or was
They
it
just came out and said it.
They said that, what, yesterday or something?
Like yesterday.
Backtrack.
Oh, wow.
They
Well,
backtrack, yeah.
I
was
guess
the
it's
publicity
Rotten
department.
Tomatoes. They're like, hang on a second.
Right.
So who knows what's going to happen with that
They aren't
franchise.
letting this stinker touch the X-Men.
All right, so hey, we just sweated up about this year. Now we're going to move on to the year 2016. We're going into the future.
The future.
The future.
Marty,
And the
we've got to
future-
take you back to the future.
Yeah, the future's pretty bright. I mean, this year we had like 4 superhero films. Next year, how many? Oh, 3. Well, The Kingsman.
It's like 15, right?
8?
Eight.
Unbelievable.
Película de superhéroes.
Well, let's
God.
rock and roll right into it. We got first off the docket. Let's talk about Deadpool. So Deadpool just released the first R-rated superhero trailer
Yes.
to the first R-rated superhero film, or at least the first comedic R-rated superhero film. There's been some R-rated superhero genre films like
I
Watchmen.
think Blade was R-rated. also, I
Blade,
believe.
Watchmen, Constantine, I believe was R. But I mean, Deadpool is in a league of its own. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm incredibly excited about this, and it feels like it's almost like we're getting exactly what we wanted, even though it's Fox and they just ruined the Fantastic Four.
Right.
They've also been able to reinvigorate X-Men with Days of Future Past, with First Class, and now with X-Men Apocalypse. They've got a bunch of stuff going on. They've got Gambit. They've got, all these other films that we're going to talk about. Let's talk about Deadpool first. Umberto.
Very excited for this movie. The trailer rocked at Comic-Con. It rocked this just a day or two ago. They made the movie for almost like $40 million. It didn't cost them anything, and believe it or not, this is a good thing. Fox left them alone. They're making it cheap enough. Let them do what they want.
Right.
Thank you, Internet, because of you guys retweeting and watching the hell out of that concept short that existed for many years. When that finally hit thermonuclear, the studios were like, oh, you know what? Maybe we should make a Deadpool movie. And that's exactly what they did. They made it for a price. They'll probably make it back its budget opening weekend. It's edgy. Like, I love edgy, dark superhero material to balance out everything. So, and I'm excited. It's the first superhero movie out the gate in February. It's a holiday weekend, a 4-day weekend. It's going to do gangbusters. Everyone I know is excited. There's an argument right now that, that basically the Deadpool and that Fox presentation stole Comic-Con, not the DC one. I respectfully disagree. But I'm excited. Bring it on,
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never been a huge Deadpool fan in the comics. I like the character. I don't go out to buy the comics and stuff like that, but I've liked him in other things. The trailer just blew me away. I mean, Ryan Reynolds seems like he was born to play that character. His timing in that thing is unreal. I mean, I think we're in for something that's going to blow people's minds. And it's interesting too, because I'd heard from some sources that the stuff that went out on Vimeo, the demo that they had done, was not released by Tim Miller.
No, it
People
wasn't.
thought he did it, but it was somebody who was trying to basically screw him over, and it ended up working in his favor. So
I've been trying to get that scoop for years. Let me release it. Let me release it. And they were all terrified.
yeah, because they
and panicked,
when it came out, man, they freaked out that this had leaked.
Absolutely.
And
Really?
I'm sure
That's
Fox,
good to know.
Fox
Yeah.
wasn't probably happy. Marvel probably was not happy, but it ended up. It could have blown up and just been horrible and ruined the guy's career. But instead, they realized, wait a minute, we got something here. It's 16 million hits already.
Right.
For the trailer. It just came out 2-3 days ago.
Yep.
I mean,
it's
it's
a
going to
really
be a
an audience
smash.
It's a really fun trailer, and it's also really fun to see that proof of concept 3D stuff
Yeah.
in the trailer. They're like, "Oh, we actually
Yes.
used that, and then we shot that too. That's
Yep.
part of the movie."
Yep.
So
The previs, yeah.
yeah,
And from what I hear, the screenplay for that is
It's
outstanding.
phenomenal.
So I mean, just looking at this guy's visual style and knowing that it's got a good script, hopefully we got a hit on our hands.
yeah, it looks like it's got a lot of fun action. It's going to
Yeah.
be really funny. There's a lot of great fourth wall breaking. So I'm 100% in. Let's talk about the big movie that's dropping 2016, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Haven't heard of it.
Have you, Vito? This is a
What is
film that's
this?
got two small characters
Sounds
from Warner
interesting.
Brothers. They've been around for a while. So this movie, come on. This is that movie that all of us have been waiting for. If you're a superhero fan, you've been waiting for this movie since you were a little kid.
Yeah.
And you never even thought it was going to happen. You never thought this was going to happen. You get used to it in comic books. These characters, and then they're interchanging and having fun and fighting each other in Dark Knight. You got World's Finest for years. Then you grow up and you're an adult and you're like, different characters, different worlds. They're never going to meet. Even if they're still owned by the same parent company, they're different franchises. And now we've got Marvel breaking it with a cinematic universe where all these characters that they own at least populate the same universe, and you see them crossing over. And it's really kind of establishing in the filmic world what we as comic book readers have always taken for granted and enjoyed and loved, is the interactivity of this world. So with that being said, Man of Steel opened up that world of the cinematic world, and that's why Wonder Woman and Aquaman and the Flash and Cyborg, possibly even the Green Lantern Corps, will be peppered in throughout this movie, Batman v Superman. But a bigger part of this is basically establishing these characters in this world. And I think bringing Batman in is such a fantastic just stroke of luck in a certain sense. We've heard Zack Snyder say we were doing a Man of Steel 2 developmental meeting. I mentioned, what if at the end of it you had, them wheeling in the kryptonite to the Wayne Manor, and everybody's whoa, and then they're like, what if it began that way? Bam, page 1 rewrite, Batman v Superman. Let's talk about this. Vito, what do you think about this film?
I felt burned by Man of Steel, so I didn't want to be excited. I saw the trailer. I'm pretty excited for it. I'm again, the weird thing for me is the fact that they're setting this where Batman's already retired, and yet no one's ever heard of him in this world. Like I'm wondering how they're going to cover that, and how they're going to show that he was underground and yet he drives this huge Batmobile around and he's got a ship, but yet he's a myth. So I'm not sure how that's going to play, but I do like the idea of an older Bruce Wayne in this movie. I like Ben Affleck. I think he's a great director. I've not always been a big fan of his acting, but I think he looks like he's knocking this one out of the park. I am really excited to see Batman and Superman together for the first time. I mean, come on. You gotta be excited about that. You know what I mean? And I liked the Suicide Squad trailer, what I saw of it. I wasn't sure about what to think about the new Joker look and everything, but I think Leto is gonna knock it out of the park. So the world they're setting up is darker than the one I'm used to, but I'm gonna give it a shot.
How about you?
Oh my God, I can't contain. I've been fanboying since they announced it. This is a movie that's been being promoted now for 2-3 years, 2 Comic-Cons, and never.
Comic-Cons, yeah.
Perhaps just the making and the promotion of this movie could perhaps be your next documentary subject. But remember when Akiva Goldsman tried to do this like a couple of years earlier?
Thank God he had
Oh
nothing
my
to do
God,
with it.
remember that? But my God, look at that shot right there. Okay, right there in that shot, you got. Who doesn't want, like Frank Miller said it in the 70 million documentary on the Dark Knight animated deluxe edition, which I highly recommend. Watch the Frank Miller doc. We always want to see Batman versus Superman fight, but that shot, you got an alien, a superpower, and the guy just broke Batman's car, and Batman stands up like, what? In that last iconic shot, looking all broad, we get ourselves, in my opinion, because we grew up with the Burton Batman, we have a comic accurate Bruce Wayne, 6'4", good-looking, handsome, well-dressed. We get a physically bruiser, brawler Batman. We're going back to when he was nasty. He's got
earlier to scoop up all that additional money. These movies, both of these movies, are going to be billion-dollar films. When you put Civil War, and then when you drop the idea of Robert Downey Jr. being in it, and they
Right.
revealed that Civil War title, and Black Panther came out, you're like, this is unbelievable. Everything that Marvel's doing is just pretty smart, and it's very exciting for fans because you're like, that's smart. I never saw that coming. The Russo brothers killed it with The Winter Soldier. I just can't wait. What do you think, Umberto?
I'm
Vito.
sorry. You said Umberto,
I
but
did.
you were
Go
looking
ahead.
at me.
You can go.
I hogged your spotlight. I think it looks freaking amazing. I mean, I think what they've done with these two characters in the other movies is so pervasive and so strong that I can't wait to see them go head to head. I mean, I want to see them. You love both of these characters. You don't want to see them fight, obviously.
Right.
But it's Cap's movie, so I'm assuming that they're going to make Cap the righteous guy in the movie. You know what I mean? But I'm excited. I mean, to hear that it's going to be Avengers 2.5 and to hear the amount of characters that are in this movie.
Totally.
I think it's going to work just because they've had the slow buildup. The thing that worries me about Batman versus Superman is that DC is trying to catch up to 15 movies in one movie, whereas these guys have built up to this,
Right.
and they do it so. You mentioned in part one about how Marvel set up. Okay, it's a science world, and then the next movie they slowly introduce the concept of magic.
Right.
Then they slowly introduce that you can go into space. They build the world very slowly, and so this is the buildup that we've had for 7 movies of these two characters. You know, with these contravening ideas, and now they're going to clash. I think it's going to be amazing. It may be better than Batman versus Superman,
Sacrilege.
but
How about you, Umberto? What do you think?
Oh
Civil
my
War.
God. Civil War. Excited for multiple reasons. There's the two sides, okay?
Right.
The reintroduction of Spider-Man. And let's not forget the first cinematic appearance of the Black Panther.
Oh,
This is
yeah.
where I'm rooting for Marvel. I hope
Yeah.
they redeemed themselves with this with minority characters.
Sure.
But we're now getting our first minority superhero. The hood is excited. Everybody, I get asked mostly about this. Yo, what's going on with Black Panther? Is he going to be fresh? Does his suit look? And that's what I'm excited. So he's neutral. That's already been confirmed by Feige personally. He's on a mission. I won't say why, but I'm excited for the Black Panther element of it, the Spider-Man element, and of course the two teams, the Superhero Registration Act, the inciting incident in the first movie. Do I think that the conversation, which one is going to gross more, Captain America: Civil War or Batman v Superman? The conversation is who cares. The conversation should be both these movies are going to be good. Fans are going to enjoy them.
Yay for us.
Yay
we
for
get
yay
these
for
two
us.
incredible movies in 2016.
We get
Come
Christmas,
on.
man. And
Yeah.
oh my God.
I think
can't
it's
wait.
a win-win situation. I mean, the Russo brothers are so fantastic. You know, I'm not going to do any spoilers. They were on our show like about 4 months or 5 months ago. And, you know, we're talking afterwards and we're like, you know, hey, this and that. And they're really friendly dudes. They dropped some, you know, some little tips here and there because we were talking about some action scenes. And like, I was like, hey, how'd you shoot this? And I love this about Winter Soldier, this and that. Then they were like, oh, wait till you see this because this is going to happen. The way they explained this one action scene that they're working on, I cannot wait. But let me just drop The Raid 2 as a little flavor nugget.
good.
Something that was like that and like some Ong Bak stuff where it was like, oh, wow. Like, I think if they do this sequence the way they were talking about it, it could be one of the best standout action sequences ever shot. If they are able to pull it off, and they were able to pull off some incredible action sequences in Captain America: The Winter Soldier that just were really, like you were mentioning earlier, the hand-to-hand combat with the Winter Soldier, the car chasing, the way they pulled off action scenes were just as strong as the way they
the
filmed all
scene
of the
where,
sequences with just dialogue.
Oh yeah, where Black Widow rappels down, you know, and the car explodes. I mean, that stuff was really well put together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they just even the opening sequence with Cap and Black Widow dropping into that boat and just seeing Cap just take these guys out that like they're fleas, because that's exactly what that super soldier serum does. That gives him the power to be like bing bong, like throwing the shield just the way like from the comic book.
Yep.
Incredible. And it's like those are the kind of things that I really respect and admire when they're like, look, we're taking these elements, we're transforming them, we're turning them into this other thing, a movie for the mass audiences, but yet here's all those little things that you as a comic book fan are going to respect and admire and thank us for putting in those little things that you remember when you were reading it as a kid. Like he would use the shield as like bounce it off and like just those kinds of things. To me, that's what I really like about filmmakers like the Russo brothers. And really, I respect Feige for being able to keep a hold on the characters So I'm really happy that Spider-Man is returning, that he's going to be in Civil War. We were talking about that earlier. Like I was guessing like, they dropped he's going to have like the weird sweater. He's like, look, he's a kid and he's 16. Where does he get the sewing skills? I don't care if he has like, he's wearing a sweater or something when he's first Spider-Man, or like a, jumpsuit. He makes his own costume. That's what it would look like, because that's what a 16-year-old would actually be able to put together.
Right.
Just because he gets Spider-Man powers doesn't mean he gets like weaving, sewing, costume design powers either. So that's where probably somebody like we were talking about, it's probably not going to be Captain America. It's probably going to be Iron Man. He's already shown that he's got Jarvis designing and making Hot Rod red. Like, he can tell his computer, like, add a spider element to it. Adds a spider webbing. That's how I think it's going to get created. It makes the most sense. I mean, that's what I would do if I was, like, look, we're presented with these problems. It's very fast, very easy problem solving, and you don't need to get into too many specific details. There are suits done. Now let's move forward with the story, which is actually really important. So what do you think? Without too many spoilers, because I know you know a lot of stuff about Spider-Man, but you mentioned that he's in it for more than a cameo.
Yeah, because that was the deal. Either cameo or goal. There's no in between. That was on the Sony part, and rightfully so. So he's on Tony Stark's side, obviously. So what I know would get into spoiler territory. I'll probably publish it on the site Monday. But Spider-Man, Black Panther, and heroes. Marvel has a unique position now. They have all 4 quadrants covered: teenagers, adults, men, women, children. There's something in this superhero movie for everybody. General audiences and hardcore fanboy nerds. And it's going to be interesting to see. I think it's going to be the golden years of superhero cinema. Again, we got 8 movies coming up, but I'm stoked for the Spider-Man homemade costume that he, like you said, that he crafts, and then what he probably gets at the end of the movie.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait. Let's move on. We got X-Men Apocalypse, another X-Men movie that Bryan Singer is directing. Now, a lot of people keep going off on Ivan Ooze and hating the look of Apocalypse and this and that. And I say, everybody who has those complaints, why don't you wait until you see the movie? Because to me, it's like he doesn't look like Ivan Ooze. It looks like an interpretation of the character Apocalypse. Yeah, he doesn't have the weird kiss lips and all this other stuff, and he isn't like 15 feet tall. We don't know if he's going to transform. Maybe he has growth powers. Maybe we don't know what that's a still from a shot from the movie. We don't actually know what the final look of Apocalypse is going to be. But to me, even if that's Apocalypse and that's what he looks like, looks cool to me. I'm like, you know what? I care about the acting. The Oscar Isaac is playing the character. He's a really great actor. I care about the story. Sounds like a great storyline. They're bringing in a lot of heavy story to X-Men Apocalypse, because this is about, once again, like Civil War, it's about picking sides, and Apocalypse is about bringing about the end of humanity and like the Homo superior being just like what Magneto wanted, but those 5 notches above. What do you think, Vito?
I think the movie's going to be pretty fascinating. The casting alone, every time they announce somebody new who's in the cast, I just get really excited. Yes, you miss the jaw. I do miss the look of the character, especially since you see all these cosplayers who really look exactly like it. But Oscar Isaac, I mean, that guy, anybody who's seen the film Ex Machina, that guy can act his ass off. I mean, I think he's going to knock this out of the park. I have a friend, well, I can't say too much. I have a friend who works on the movie, and he said that he's just unbelievable in this part. So what he makes up for not being 15 feet tall is that he is a powerful mutant. So as long as he's able to sell the character, the movie's going to rock. And I mean, look at it. Storm, that's the Storm we've always wanted to see in the movies, I don't know. I'm excited. I mean,
I personally love Psylocke's outfit. It looks like it's right out of the comic book. And it's like people always complaining, oh, how come you're not doing the comic book? And then they do the comic book. Well, that looks stupid. I'm like, come on. You can't win.
They look exactly, the side characters look exactly like the characters in the comics. Apocalypse, you could see the Egyptian kind of influence on there a little bit and stuff, but it looks like he's also fused with the costume, which is interesting.
Totally.
I don't know. They changed the Sentinels and it worked for me. So I'm willing to see what they do with Apocalypse,
How about you?
I'm excited for it. But to the haters out there, the same haters that attacked Gal Gadot when she got cast as Wonder Woman, this is Oscar Isaac. He's not Ivan Ooze. He's Apocalypse. Y'all need to chill, okay? But They've been doing they did a great job with First Class.
Mm-hmm.
They did a great job with Days of Future Past. And I think they're gonna knock it out the park with this one, based on what I'm hearing. And again, they have a heavy hitter and an actor as Oscar Isaac. I mean, his look is what it is, and we don't know what the final product is gonna be. But chill, give the movie a shot. She's very sexy, and so is she. So
I love that it's set in the 80s.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
we've got all this crazy 80s outfits that would never work. You have Jubilee with a bright yellow
Yes.
outfit. You got Summers in there. You got all the original X-Men, Jean Grey. So that
Yes.
you got younger characters coming in who they're being introduced in this 80s atmosphere. It's a great way as a brand new, revived, original, brand new blood for these characters with some of the other characters like Professor X, like Beast, like Mystique, like Magneto, who've come in from the other two. So I personally think I cannot wait to see this. This is really like X-Men Civil War. That's basically what this is.
If
There's
you
so
really
many
think about
characters
it,
involved.
they're getting to that point where it is whose side are you going to choose
It
for
is.
all these movies
Yeah.
coming out. It's like that weird convergence,
absolutely.
All right, let's talk about another film that's coming out in 2016, the sequel to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. Umberto, what do you think about this one?
No, good. I'm excited for it. I was, like I said, I liked the first one. I didn't think it was a train wreck or anything, and I can't wait to see what the second one brings. But it's good. Let's keep it real. The Ninja Turtles originated in comics, black and white, back in 83, 84. They are comic book characters. It's technically a comic book movie. It was the first one was a success. Let's see what they do with the second one. I know the director person, so I had to XL and other movies and stuff. It's like White House Down. Nobody went to see that as well. So that's their concern. And it's a good one considering, a legit concern considering the movie's going to cost $150 million. But I think that budget is going to come down considerably in the coming weeks before they start shooting as they tighten that script. So, but regardless, I'm excited to see, let's see what happens.
I'm not a big Gambit fan. I don't see where exactly they're going to go with this character in a solo movie. I could see him being in something else as a side character. But I mean, what's so fascinating about Gambit that makes them want to make a movie other than the fact that Channing Tatum wants to be in it? I mean, they could have done a Nightcrawler movie. I'd love to go see that. You know what I mean? I don't get the big deal about Gambit.
We'll see.
Yeah.
And plus, poor Taylor Kitsch. I remember when Channing Tatum made the announcement he was going to be in the movie. Taylor Kitsch was like, "But they just talked to me and told me the other day I'm going to be in the," so they basically gave that poor guy the shaft. And so
well, Taylor Kitsch is a good actor. He got a series of big movies that he bombed out on, and so he'll be in another. He's good. I thought he was great in John Carter. That movie just was marketed wrong. So I agree. I kind of agree with you, Vito. Like
he
Gambit,
throws cards. He has a stick.
Even when he was in X-Men Origins, the character Gambit was like, oh, it's cool that they introduced him. And, I'm just like, Channing Tatum, I'm sure, is going to add so much more to that character. But that's what I was questioning. When they first announced the $150 million, I was like, what is it going to take place in outer space on another planet? What are they going to build like 45 sets and explode them? It's in real life. It's like, what is really going to cost $150 million? Or is that just all the top brass above the line people? That's $100 million. So the film's really going to cost $50. That's probably what the reality is.
Right.
Let's move on to non-reality and talk about the last film of 2016, Doctor Strange. Yeah. Now, this is the film that I am looking forward to most in 2016.
I agree.
Even more than Batman v Superman.
Really?
Even more than Captain America: Civil War, because Doctor Strange is a horror superhero film that deals with other dimensions. It is the just like Guardians of the Galaxy went to outer space, this is the film that's going to break open the altered dimensions, multi-dimensions of Marvel. It's the film that opens up, just like Fantastic Four will never be able to go to the microverse or anything and fight Psycho Man because they probably won't make a Fantastic Four 2. At least with this version of Doctor Strange, they're going to be able to have the mindless ones, have Dormammu, have all these really cool, trippy, weird adventures, but also done in a horror style fashion, which is exactly what Doctor Strange should be done in. I think getting Benedict Cumberbatch to play Doctor Strange is a casting coup. I cannot wait to see this film. This is the film, at least for me, definitely Batman v Superman, Captain America: Civil War, already kind of have a feeling I'm going to enjoy those films. The question mark for me is Doctor Strange. And that question mark also for me is because I love that character. I love Steve Ditko's artwork from the 60s. I love the character art that Gene Colan did in the 70s and 80s. Paul Smith. I mean, you can name so many different people who've worked on Doctor Strange and added all this additional flavor to that character. Now we get to see him as a real character, not like the TV movie from the 80s. This is this is Doctor Strange done right. So I'm looking forward to just the cinematographer. Just a day or so ago, mentioned it's like, this is going to be Marvel's Fantasia. And when he said that, it cracked my brain open into like, when he said Fantasia, what he's saying is all these different dimensions are going to all have their own specific look. Just like the 9 realms, this is going to be like the 400 altered dimension realms or whatever. They're going to have that Steve Ditko freaky, trippy, acid-drenched freak out, like multiple orbs and doorways and weird creatures. And it's going to be like you're floating through an MC Escher painting, and then you're inside of a Dali painting, and then you're inverted into a cosmic trip out. That's what I want to see. Add characters to that, add a cool story. You got to hit. What do you think, Vito?
Exactly what you said. Every single thing that you brought up is what I feel about that movie. I love Doctor Strange. I love, stuff that has to deal with the occult, and I'm hoping you get some Cthulhu mythos kind of weird stuff with the tendrils and everything in there. But the fact that they cast, I mean, look at the cast that they've got. In addition to Cumberbatch, you have Baron Mordo I can never pronounce his name.
Eithriel Chiwetel.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yes, because I can never pronounce his name.
Yeah.
But you have
And Tilda
Tilda
Swinton.
Swinton playing the ancient one. She may or may not be a male or a female or neither. You know, like the things that they're doing with this movie is really blowing my mind. I have to point out that Scott Derrickson, the director of that film, is a really competent horror director. He did The Exorcism of Emily Rose, which scared the crap out of me. I don't get scared watching movies. I could watch 100 horror movies and I'm like, eh. The fact that that movie was so realistically done and the weird contortions he got out of that actress and there were no effects, it scared me for some reason. He's really good at really getting a creepy vibe going. And the fact that they're going with a horror element, I think, is the right way to go instead of making it super heroic.
Right.
So I'm very excited for that movie. I also, that's probably number one on my list, other than maybe I think Batman versus Superman for next year.
I'm glad you mentioned that they're going with the horror element. I know that Marvel will actually let him direct it as a horror film and not stop it and like, oh, we're going to reshoot everything. I think, you know,
they
trust
chose
who they
him
get.
to do a horror film.
Yeah. How about you, Umberto?
Oh, I'm very. This is Kevin Feige's project for years. He's been trying to get off the ground. I read the original draft by Oppenheimer and Donnelly. I didn't grow up the Doctor Strange fan or into with the dimensions, the macabre and stuff. But the script was solid enough that it was good for. Like I read it from a general audience point of view, and it was serviceable. We get the origin of him with his hands and stuff, him being a cocky neurosurgeon, then coming into his powers. Now then they went and got John Spates and did a whole different new take, and that script is even stronger from what I'm hearing.
Oh, good.
Like you said, Scott Derrickson is a very competent horror director. Nice all-around guy too. I like his casting choices so far. I like the direction they go. From what I'm hearing, it's gonna perhaps steal winter of 2016 or the fall of 2016.
I certainly hope so.
I have high hopes for this one.
I am so excited about that. And then that rocks us into 2017. We're just going to mention all these films and we're going to talk about them really quickly. We've got a whole bunch of films coming out in 2017. We've got Wolverine 3. So we've got Hugh Jackman's very last turn as Logan in Wolverine 3. Now he's hinting whether or not it's true or not, whether it's going to be Logan, Old Man Logan. I don't know what they're going to do. What do you guys think?
I would like to see Old Man Logan. The thing that would sadden me is that we won't get to see the Venom dinosaur,
Right.
Which I thought was like the coolest thing about it. But the Old Man Logan storyline's pretty cool. I'm not sure how they're going to pull it off without having Hawkeye and having, you know, some of those other elements.
Inbred Hulks.
Yeah, and the Hulks and so yeah, because those are really amazing characters. But if they can find I was one of the people who really loved the Wolverine. I thought, aside from the robot, you know, suit for Silver Samurai, like, that movie was amazing, and it was an attempt again at making a serious adult level Wolverine movie. And I think Hugh Jackman is going to go out with a bang. I mean, he doesn't want to make a shitty third movie, I don't think. So I think it's going to be Old Man Logan. I think they're going to get some cameos from a lot of the other X-Men in this.
Right.
And they're going to do some really mind-blowing stuff with it because, you know, again, that storyline is so twisted. It's going to be amazing to see what they do with it.
I don't know if they could do Old Man Logan because it relies on so many characters who are not part of
Hawkeye, Hulk,
the Fox universe. I mean, you can't even have the Spider-Man. Remember, they had the spider car that drives up. I mean, it's like had so many of those like corny elements that was fun to see in this film. I mean, if they take the elements of the idea of Old Man Logan and look, he's old in the future. There's something there, I guess, but I would rather them just kind of make a good film instead of like try to like work a way to make Old Man Logan, because it's relying on too many other characters that they don't have. That it won't be Old Man Logan. It'll just be like an idea of Old Man Logan. What do you think?
Unfortunately, the producers shot down that rumor that it's going to be Old Man Logan.
Good.
You know, so it's not going to happen.
Okay.
I mean, but you never know. These producers lie all the time. But
I'm all good with that.
The thing with Hugh Jackman, he's played the character now for 17 years and has always delivered. Okay, he's what I call the anti-Birdman argument, meaning an actor like Hugh Jackman can play a superhero and have longevity in a career doing other roles, which he has. He does musical theater, he does all sorts of movies, and he's great in them. So this Wolverine spawned a career for this gentleman. Totally. And he wasn't stigmatized by the character, and he respects the movie, he respects the character, and he always comes back to revisit because he knows this is bread and butter, and he treats it with respect. I also like that he goes out of his way physically, you know, maybe with a little help. I mean, he is pushing 50 now and look more brolic and swole than ever, but I'm very excited to see. I'll probably end up crying to see his last performance of Wolverine, because there's a generation of kids that grew up with him. So it's going to be a very special movie.
And even when he's in bad Wolverine movies, like I thought the Wolverine, that ending to me took me out of the film. I was like, now I'm watching what's Viper. She looks like a cosplay character and he's fighting. It just was like, what are they doing? Like the last 20 minutes of that film to me didn't equal the other first like 80 minutes. It's not like a Fantastic Four situation, but it was like, I wanted to really like the Wolverine. I just kind of like, it was okay, but then they ruined it, the ending. So, same director, James Mangold. Maybe they're not going to have those problems with this last one. They stick with a particular, way of doing it. I don't know how that last scene got pushed on him or whatever with the Silver Samurai. But hopefully that doesn't happen with Wolverine 3. But let's move on to another sequel called Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which is, look, that is a fantastic film. It's everybody's brand new Star Wars. It's the superhero Marvel Star Wars that we wanted. That we weren't expecting, that no one was expecting. And here's the sequel. What do you guys think is going to happen in the sequel?
We find out who Peter Quill's father is. That's
Definitely.
a big question.
Yep.
I promise I won't spoil it for now. What else? Yeah, it's a continuation of the story. Now that they're confident that it works, they're going to go bigger and stuff. Again, Marvel space opera.
Totally.
So definitely looking forward to this one as well. Yeah.
I'm hoping that we're going to get the Empire Strikes Back of this trilogy.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Oh.
Yeah, I like the fact that this artistic representation is a takeoff of that original
Totally,
Star Wars poster. But I'm hoping that we're going to get, the movie that basically blows the first one away and makes us, and I hope it has a cliffhanger so we have to watch the third movie. I think this is probably going to be one of the best films of next year, hands down. James Gunn has such a profound respect for these characters. Everybody in this movie, you could tell they loved being in it. I mean, you see the amount of prep that Vin Diesel did to say, I am Groot over and over. Everybody put their all into that. I think, James Gunn's just going to knock this one out of the park.
Yeah, I'm do that in multiple languages too.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
I'm particularly
really?
excited about like you said, his father. My guess is going to be Adam Warlock. They're going to bring Warlock
Me
in.
too.
It doesn't have to be the Marvel original origin of him as the Cocoon from Fantastic Four and all this other stuff. It'd be cool if they could have done that. They can't do that due to rights issues, so they're going to have to change it anyway. Might as well change it the right way. So it makes sense to me. Let's move on to a little film called Wonder Woman. Yes, we are finally getting a Wonder Woman film. Right now, it seems like it's going to be the first female-led superhero film to be out of the gate first. We thought maybe Captain Marvel might be that, but not really. It's going to be Wonder Woman, and it's going to be played by Gal Gadot. She's being introduced in roughly about 8 or 9 months as Wonder Woman in Superman or Batman v Superman. What are you thinking, Berto?
Oh my God, I can't wait. Again, a female superhero movie. It's going to be doing incredibly well. I remember when Joss Whedon was attached. I remember even early in that, almost a decade ago, when Joel Silver bought a really good period piece version of it. That was a good script as well. It's had a long, tumultuous development period to get to the screen. I'm finally happy that she's gonna be in Batman vs Superman, and then she's gonna have her own movie, and then maybe another 2 afterwards as well. I'm excited with the direction they go in. I like that they got this kid as Trevor, Steve Trevor, who's a prominent character, not just some male himbo, but a liaison to the Justice League, to the government, Justice League, and all that. So it sounds exciting, and I like the director that they got. I love the director they had at first, but Patty Jenkins could knock it out the park as well. So they're doing the right thing, and again, we're broadening to superhero culture to not only minorities but women as well, and it's long overdue. And bravo to the DC and Warner for taking a risk to put a female superhero movie out, because I think they could work just as well as the male ones.
Definitely. How about you, Vito?
I think it's long overdue. I would have actually liked to have seen a Wonder Woman movie before a Suicide Squad movie, but I'm just glad that we're finally getting around to it. I loved the show when I was a kid. I mean, Wonder Woman's always been a really fascinating character. I think, I don't know, and correct me if I'm wrong, you probably know more about this than I do, but I think DC hasn't kind of known the direction they want to run this character in. They don't know if she's going to be in the 40s, if she's going to be a warrior, if she's going to be a peacenik, and things like that. So, like, I'm hoping they hammer that stuff out before the movie comes out. I really want to see this movie do well. I mean, we've been talking on our show about how, for years, about how, like, why has there never been a Wonder Woman movie? I mean, why can no one get her right? And I think that they're on the right track. I'm wondering, I don't know. I think it's going to be fascinating how they're going to handle this. And if it does well, and one hopes it does, I hope we see a whole slate of female superhero movies. I mean, we need them so bad. And a Black Widow movie, finally. You know, I
Yeah.
hope it opens it up for that because
I certainly am looking forward to it. I think the studio really has a lot of belief in Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. So I'm looking forward to not only her interpretation in Batman v Superman, but her leading the Wonder Woman film. So I too am looking forward to that. FF2, Fantastic Four 2. Now, is this even going to happen is my big question. I think the movie, it just opened this past weekend, and, you know, I think it's gonna. I don't know, because
doing
we're
well,
going into
right?
the future. Yeah, it's doing pretty well. I'm guessing it's gonna hit over 40 million. Does that mean it's gonna get greenlit as a sequel? Well, they already placed this date down as a sequel for Fantastic Four #2. Fox wants to keep hold of these characters. They're probably going to go in a new direction. They might keep the original cast, but I think they're probably going to go with obviously a new writer, new director. What do you think, Alberto?
I don't know, honestly. I hope it still goes forward and stuff, but we have to see. It's going to come down to how it performs internationally and domestically over the next 30 days. Then we'll have a definitive answer. But if it does go, it's like you said, different. You know, keep the cast because they're all tied down anyway to multiple picture contracts. Keep the cast and get a new writer, new director and stuff. But if you guys go make this movie and give it a second chance, and with this cast, and get a writer and a director, leave them alone. Let them work in peace. That's all I have to say on that.
I just don't know how they can get the damage control going. You know what I mean? Like, I think the first one is so irrevocably damaged that trying to do a second movie at this point, I mean, I'm sure if it makes money, you're going to get that sequel. You always do. The first Fantastic Four from 2005, well, the second one from 2005 did well enough that we got Rise of the Silver Surfer, and that was critically derided. And you know what I mean? So I'm sure we'll see the sequel, but I mean, does anybody want to see it is the question.
know. You know, I got to question whether we're going to see a sequel because look at The Amazing Spider-Man 2. That movie actually made a lot of money. But it got critically kind of bombed out, and then they had issues with, you know, getting Andrew Garfield, moving forward with all the different like Sinister Six. They were going to do like 45 different Spider-Man movies. Remember, they even announced Aunt May. I mean, people joke about that. I think I'm joking about that. That was actually Avi Arad said, "Yeah, we're thinking about, you know, going into the 50s, having Aunt May be that spy fighting communists." Like, you're out of your mind,
Right?
But you know, thankfully that's not happening. So. Speaking of Aunt May, let's move on to Marvel's Sony's Spider-Man. So they cast a brand new Spider-Man. Tom Holland is replacing. He's replaced to Andrew Garfield, and they are doing a brand new Spider-Man. Now, Feige said they are not going to rock another origin story. My guess is that you're going to see that origin story done in a quick flashbacks, probably during either the title sequence or Peter explaining it to someone else. Like they're going to come up with a very unique and fun way to show that origin, especially if the writers are doing it like a Ferris Bueller or like a kind of a John Hughes kind of fun, lighter-hearted, like a comedy action adventure, which is what everything's kind of signaling if that's what they're going to be doing, the direction they're taking. I would see that being a very good way to take care of not only the origin and not spending all this time going into the origin, make it simply like almost like, hey, I got bit by this freaky spider. You know, it's like, leave it at that. What do you think?
Oh, I'm very excited because now Sony's gonna develop it under the tutelage of Marvel. Marvel's gonna have a very prominent part in the development of the script. They're gonna defer to Feige in notes and stuff. He's gonna be able to work with Amy and get this thing properly done post Sam Raimi. I'm excited about the rumored villain, Kraven the Hunter. You know, very timely villain as well, considering everything that's going on in the news right now with big game hunters. But let's see what happens. I'm excited. That's why let's see what happens in Civil War first. But in Marvel, we trust them with these characters, and if they have their say in the Sony development meetings, then I think we'll be fine. We'll get the iteration that they want. He's young enough. He's actually high school age.
Right.
You see him on Instagram. He's quite the athlete. Already doing backflips and stuff all the time. So bring it on. New Spider-Man. I don't mind the third Spider-Man reboot. I mean, I couldn't watch the last two films, but looking forward to Marvel's version.
Definitely.
Marvel version proper of this character.
How about you, Vito?
I agree. I think Spider-Man is the crown jewel of superheroes for Marvel. It's a major coup that they got him back, and I'm really excited Was that stuff that supposedly the Russo brothers had tweeted with the costume?
You know,
was
we
that
don't know
real?
if that's real
Or
or
was it
not. I guess
fake?
was it fake?
Just
Was it what?
heard that indeed is real. That account is real. The people following on that
Interesting.
account are real. I mean,
Okay,
they're-
so-
'Cause I've heard
James
it back
Gunn's-
and forth.
Yeah,
like
James Gunn's denied it, but he's denied a couple of my things, and everything that I report on him came out accurate. I don't believe the hype with talent talk.
I love the idea of his suit having the eyes that are expressive. I think that's really amazing. I get what you said. In Marvel, we trust. I mean, I'm excited to see anything Marvel puts out at this point.
Right.
If they put out a freaking Jarvis the Butler series, I will watch it. I mean,
Absolutely.
they're just the only thing of theirs I think isn't even super great is Agents of Shield, and I still watch it. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. You know what I mean? I'll watch anything they do. I'm excited. Spider-Man was my favorite character growing up, so it's a no-brainer. I mean, as long as I don't know. I don't want to crap on Sony too much, but I don't think they handled the character well.
Yeah, I'm
excited.
very
to see.
glad that they made the proper and correct decision to give the character back, or at
Yes.
least under the tutelage of
Right.
Kevin Feige. It's like, of course, they still own the character. They were able to come up with some kind of like, look, you help us out, we'll figure it out. But it makes the most sense. I mean, Marvel is like knocking it out of the park left and right, and the other people who have Marvel characters and Marvel properties are not, and that's simply the case. You know, you have these a few films, like you have X-Men Days of Future Past, give it back to the people who actually know what to do with it, like Bryan Singer. You're going to get a good film. I think, we're all looking forward to X-Men Apocalypse. We're all looking forward to Deadpool. Those are Fox films as well, just like Fantastic Four. So, we'll see what happens with Fox. But for right now, Sony made the right choice, giving it back to Marvel. So I'm looking forward to that. Let's talk about another gigantic film that's coming out in 2017. We're in the future. It's Justice League. So this movie, I mean, we're literally a couple years. I mean, it's crazy, but yeah, that movie's coming out in 2017. So first next year, we got Batman v Superman. Then a year later, we have Justice League. So we're going to have Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Waterman, which I wish they'd change his name. Just call him King of Atlantis. I'm tired of this Aquaman thing. It's stupid. Superman is dumb too, and so is Batman. He's the Batman. Then it's at least cooler. But sometimes these names are a little, goofy. But whatever. That's superheroes. You got to live with it. What do you think?
Oh, no brainer. Going to be the biggest movie since the Avengers. Look at that. It's like the sexiest cast. Look at this.
Yeah.
It looks like it's a freaking, S&M movie, and I mean, it's full of supermodels. It's gonna be an amazing movie. I mean, I'm hoping Martian Manhunter is in it. They were talking about how they were embarrassed by the character, but I want to see it.
Hey, look, they got a guy from Krypton. Why can't they have a guy from Mars?
From Mars, exactly.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
Oh, like he said, no brainer. I mean, just imagine if the rumored villain that we get is indeed Darkseid, DC's answer to Thanos and stuff. But the original Justice League, remember, the Avengers was an answer to the Justice League in the comics all those years ago. So again, very good-looking cast and stuff. But this, it's going to be the first time. I mean, technically, we're going to see it in Batman vs Superman. But to have all these heroes together, working together, they're going to have their inter-squad squabbles. Batman being who he is, Superman being the Boy Scout, Wonder Woman, and the Flash. The Green Lantern Corps. I can't wait. It's awesome.
Actually, let me correct you. The answer to Justice League was actually Fantastic Four.
Oh, all right.
That's
Stand
how
corrected.
that's how it was born. Fantastic Four.
You can
They're
correct
like
me anytime you want.
They were all hanging out. They're like, "Hey, I got this brand new comic book. It's doing really well. It's called Justice League." And the publisher was like, "Get on that! I want a superhero." A title. And Stanley came in with Fantastic Four with Jack Kirby. So, speaking of Jack Kirby, let's rock on over to our last film of 2017, Thor Ragnarok. So this is going to be the third of the Thor movies, which I'm blown away that we even got one, let alone we've got Thor showing up in all the Avengers films. Thor, like I said earlier, Jack Kirby's Thor is one of my favorite characters. I love all these Marvel characters, grew up with them, but specifically Thor from Asgard, Kirby's Norse mythology. I like Norse mythology anyway. It's badass. There's a lot of death metal that always, deals with, Amon Amarth is one of my favorite bands, and they're always singing about "By Odin's side, we will smash you." They're singing about Loki and stuff. If you never heard of Amon Amarth, get on that. It's amazing. But anyway, Thor Ragnarok. I gotta, look, they're bringing in Surtur. They're bringing in Ragnarok. You got to remove that sword. That's the beginning of the end of everything. That's some big, big stuff. That's why Thor has to scrimp away and be like, "Yo, I got to go deal with some stuff." because he's got to go deal with stuff before
The end of all things.
Right, before the Infinity Gauntlet. He's got to go rock and deal with some weird, creepy demon dude trying to remove the sword. I don't know if Beta Ray Bill is going to be in there, but I want that character to be in there so bad. I know a lot of people think he's a goofy, he's like a horse-faced guy. He's like, I think he's badass.
Still a badass character.
So what do you think, Vito? Thor Ragnarok.
I'm going to be very curious to see which of the storylines they choose, because Ragnarok has happened about 6 or 7 times in the comics. My favorite being the one that I mentioned in part 1 with David Avon Emming one.
Sure.
I thought it was just a really heartfelt Thor story. It made me really feel for him. I'm going to be curious. I'm excited to see the movie. I'm curious to see if they're going to introduce the female Thor at the end of this one, what they're going to do with that character, because there are rumors Thor is going to die in this film. You know, Marvel has finite movies set out for each of their actors. I think this is his final contract. Is he supposed to be in Avengers Infinity War?
He is.
He is. Okay, so we're not going to get the female Thor yet.
Right.
But I think it's going to be amazing, especially if they bring Branagh back and he gets that vibe that he did with Henry V with those big fight sequences. And I think it's going to be pretty amazing. This might actually be the dark horse of the year in the sense that it might be way better than what people are expecting. I think it'll certainly be the best Thor movie that we're going to get.
What do you think, Umberto?
Absolutely. I wasn't too crazy about the second one.
Right.
You know, so they'll probably get a chance to get it right with the third one. I'm also excited because it's also, like you said, the movie that leads into the Infinity War.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot of cosmic play in this one, obviously. They're still looking for a director. They should get one momentarily and see where we go from there. But I'm more excited that it leads into Infinity War, so I'm going to be looking for all those clues. Maybe the Adam Warlock character will probably be in there by now. Maybe there'll be cameos from the Guardians of the Galaxy. Maybe even, like you said, Beta Ray Bill. Who knows? So I'm excited for the cameos to see how it leads into Civil War.
I wonder if they're going to get super nerdy and unlock the Man-Gog. Who's like from the 60s. He's the weird, like, two-fingered guy's like, I will pull the sword, you know, some giant beast. Hey, you know, you never know, but I'd probably not. You know, that's my one issue with Thor: The Dark World. They had Malekith, and it kind of just didn't give him enough stuff to do. He was like a kind of like the lame villain. You know?
But that's
he's
been
a
the
great
big
actor,
argument.
you know?
Yeah, that's been one of the big arguments for the Marvel movies is that their villains aren't strong enough, with the exception of Loki
right.
and with the Kingpin on the Daredevil show. Is that the villains are actually just the exact opposite. Oh, it's Iron Man and a guy in an anti-Iron Man suit. It's Ant-Man and a guy in a Ant-Man type suit. So it's interesting to see that. I don't know, but they still make these characters work. That's the weird thing, but I don't know. They may get that in there. That rock guy that he kills in the second movie, the guy who says, "Oh, this is the best you got." I mean, that was like a minor character from one of the issues. So they throw those jokes in there all the time. You might see the Man-Gog. I just think it's funny that's called a Man-Gog.
Yeah, I want the Man-Gog miniseries, the Man-Gog one-shot. Who knows?
Hey, Groot was a throw-off character in like a Tales to Astonish or something like that. You know, so he was just and he was a bad guy. So I mean, he evolved into something that you have as a main character. So who knows?
I'm waiting for
Bring
my
on the
MODOK
Man-Gog
movie right now.
MODOK.
When is MODOK going to happen? Hey, everybody, thanks so much for tuning in to our special 2-part Insano, talking about millions of superhero films. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thanks to my guests. Vito, where can we find you online?
You can find my show at comicsoncomics.com. We are also on the Sideshow Network, which is sideshownetwork.tv. And then you can find me at Vito Lapicola on Twitter and on Facebook.
How about you, Umberto? Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at El Mayimbe, Umberto Gonzalez, one word on Facebook, and of course at heroichollywood.com across all social media on the website and Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, you name it, we're there.
Awesome. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, just at John Schnepp and at TDOSLWH. You can get my movie, a documentary about a film that never got made, starring Nicolas Cage. It was going to get directed by Tim Burton. It's called The Death of Superman Lives: What Happened? And you can find that at www.tdoslwh.com. You can get a digital download, or you can buy a Blu-ray that's got like 10 hours of extra features, and it'll help support independent filmmakers like myself. It's my site, so that's where the money's going to. I got a lot of debts I got to pay. I'm a big fan of superhero films. Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you're in Australia, This drops in the next day. So if you happen to be in Sydney, Australia, we're screening our film, The Death of Superman Lives, What Happened, at the Hayden Orpheum on August 12th. That's Wednesday. So come on down. We'll be there in person. It'll be me and Holly Payne, the producer of the film. And we've got Blu-rays and posters. And we just would love to hang out with all you crazy Australian sweaties. So come on by and I'll see you there. Thanks again for tuning into this special episode of Heroes. And I'll see you guys next week.